Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. My name is Olakunle Kasumo, and it's great to be on this show where we discuss all things books. I do hope you get through to us through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. We'd love to hear from you through X or Instagram or Facebook, any of them. We love to hear from you, and we'll do our best to respond efficiently and promptly. Let's know your thoughts about our books, about our authors, about our events, and so many other things that we feature on this show. Well, our guest today is a lady who is fast developing a reputation as a formidable children's literature author. She has authored quite a number of books for kids, and she continues to do so. It's her passion. Now, her latest book is one that not only entertains young people, children specifically, but also inspires and teaches them very important principles and history. History. I'm a big history buff. You know that by now. Well, let me not say much. Let's get to meet with Yewande Daniel Awardee and then enjoy the interview. Yewande, nice to have you on Channel's Book Club.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you.
All Nigerians I know are in Canada these days. Is that true?
It feels like that.
But you've been there for like...
I've been in Canada for over 10 years now. In fact,
Wow.
I think closer to 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yes, there's more and more Nigerians, I've noticed.
Over there.
Yes.
Well done. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, you've been writing for kids. I have to say the quality of your books very good.
Thank you.
One of the things that has bothered me for some time is lack of what I call, or what some people will call, local content. So a lot of Nigerian children read children's books written and published by Europeans or Americans. Not that that's bad in itself, but you get worried when there is a lack of local content. Is that something that has, you've thought about, bothered you?
To be honest, I actually started writing these books because I wanted to have African content in Canada so that my kids could see African books there. But as I wrote them, I realized that there's not a huge amount of children's picture books, even in Nigeria, that get published. So yes, it's something that I've noticed, and I actually hope to do more. And not just even on the fiction side, but also non-fiction picture books for kids about Nigerian history and culture.
Yeah. I'm curious about that. You said there were not enough Nigerian books for your children in Canada, for children, Nigerian children generally in Canada.
Generally speaking, yeah. So my kids, of course, go to school there and bring home books that they borrow all the time. I also did a lot of reading to my kids when they were young, and we couldn't find a lot of African content. In fact, right now in Canada, I can probably say I'm the only traditionally published Nigerian children's book writer.
Wow. Oh, yes. Wow. And that is always a concern for those of you immigrants over there. You don't want to lose that connection to your roots. You don't want your children to be completely disconnected.
Exactly.
So this was a big deal for you, right?
Yes, it was. It was. I really was very excited when I finally got a publisher to take on my book. And this book actually was nominated for an award that ensured that it's in all the classrooms in Ontario this year, which is fantastic.
Which of the books?
So it's my most recent.
Okay, the one that we're talking about. Okay, we'll come back to that. You need to talk more about that. Okay, but I mean, your story is interesting because it connects very strongly to the work you're doing writing children's books.
Yeah.
How did you have 5 children?
Boom. I don't know. It's a surprise to me, too. There are twins in there. So, yeah, so I got 2 for the price of 1 somewhere along the way.
5?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the story? Okay, you've told us about lacking books with Nigerian content. Okay, so that's one connection. But, I mean, let's jump to your most recent one. What's the connection here? You were inspired by your children in any way?
Yes. So my 3 youngest were going through a Disney phase, watching all things Disney on TV. And when kids like a show, they're watching it on repeat over and over again. So they were watching these Disney princess shows. And I remember sitting there that day watching them watch the TV. And I was literally in my mind going through the list of Disney princesses. And I realized Disney doesn't have an African princess.
Hmm.
And I think Africa might be the only continent that doesn't have representation as far as Disney princesses go. So I thought to myself, someone should do something about that, right? And then I realized, oh, this is probably a good topic for me to write a book about. And I'm from Ekiti State, where we have this tradition of regency. So it immediately jumped out to me as a very good topic to write about.
Interesting. That whole culture of reading for children, you know, how important is it? And how much is it lacking, both here and even over there in North America, where you live?
Yeah, I started out reading to my youngest. I think it's just something that, because I grew up reading a lot of books, so it's something that I wanted to do with my kids. So with my oldest kid, I did it religiously. Every night before bed, we would read a book. But as I had more kids, I did realize it gets harder, right? Life gets busy. You start to postpone it. In fact, at some point in time, I had to find this website that reads children's books, because I'd be so tired in the night. I'd be like, read to all of us so that I don't have to read it. But it's a very important culture, because when my son, who is my second kid, was in his first year of school, he hated writing. Like, he would literally hide under the table in school when they told him to write. But now he's a fantastic writer. And I credit that to the fact that we did a lot of reading at home.
This is a very powerful habit to develop for
Yeah.
kids. Okay, now let's talk about your most recent one, The Little Regent, right?
Yes.
I loved it. It's a powerful story, in my opinion, with very, very important themes. I saw leadership as a theme. I saw gender as a theme. I saw mentoring as a theme. I saw service as a theme. Yeah. So talk to us about The Little Regent.
Yeah, so I've talked about the inspiration, the fact that my kids made me want to write a book about a princess, but then I needed a theme for this book. And I happened to be writing it during the 2020 US elections. So on the TV, of course, there's so much like to think about in terms of the things that people praised as being good qualities in a leader at that time. That kind of made me a bit sad, because I felt like the world was moving in a direction where people had to be brash, had to be self-seeking in order for them to get admiration from others. And so that kind of settled in my mind as a theme for this book. And then being a Christian, the Bible verse that says, if you want to be great, you should first be a servant of all, kind of stood out to me. And that evolved into the theme for this book. Which is that theme is... I'm waiting for you to land on it. Yeah, waiting for me to say it the way I wrote it in the book. Yeah, I mean, maybe not your exact words, but it struck me. About service. Yeah, so in this book, the girl's, Abioye's father, she's the regent, her late father said to her that those who will rule must first be servants. First be servants. Those who will rule. That is so powerful. I wish everybody in Nigeria, every leader in Nigeria can hear that. Yes. In fact, I would love for every child in Nigeria to read this. Those who will rule. So that they can kind of have that at the back of their mind as they grow older, right? That leadership requires service. Please share the story with us. Share as much as you can. And if you don't want to give up everything, share it up to the points where you want to stop. Yeah, for sure. So in this book, the main character, Abioye, becomes the regent of her village because her father dies without a son. And that's actually based on a real tradition in Ekiti and some other parts of Yoruba land. So she becomes the regent. She's 8 years old, so of course she questions herself. And even the chiefs don't think that she's up to the task. Please slow down, you, and please bear with me. Forgive me for interrupting you. Okay. Regent, when there's no male child. Yes. As heir to the throne, they pick the girl. They pick the daughter, because the belief is that a woman will leave when it's time for a king to mount the throne. Is it really? I mean, is it still? But a man may not. Is that culture still there? Yes, that culture still exists today. Yes. In Ekiti, how about in other places in Yoruba land? I think some parts of Elisha also have this tradition. Okay. I don't know if any other parts of Yoruba land. Okay, so the king died. The king had only a daughter, no son. So the daughter becomes
The temporary
The
king.
temporary king, exactly.
Yeah. And in your book, you said that they needed to now get three men.
Yeah, so
three
that
men.
part is fictional.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be three men. There's different ways that they go about deciding who the next king should be.
But the general idea is that a king should be a man.
A king should be a man, exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, so she becomes.
So she becomes the regent, and she confides in her mother. She wants to know how to lead, what a good leader does. And her mother reminds her of the words of her father, that those who must rule must first learn to serve. And so she goes about doing this. So I won't give away the rest of the story, but this book is about how Abioye then learns how to serve by watching what the villagers need and trying to meet those needs. And then at the end of this story, it has a bit of a twist. So you'll have to read it to find out.
Your thoughts. Yeah, of course. Of course. People have to read so that they find out what happened. Now, I like the fact that even though these themes are applicable to adults and all that, I like the fact that as an author, you believe that these are themes that little children should learn from very young ages. That's very
right.
powerful, because the age range for your book, readership age range,
it's about 5 to 8 years old, roughly.
5 to 8 years old.
Yes, maybe primary 1 to 3.
So if 5 to 8 years old, 8-year-olds are learning about service, about leadership, I think that's very powerful, right?
Yes.
How important is it for them to learn these things?
I think it's never too early to plant those types of seeds in your kids, right? Seeds that grow up to influence their own character, especially if they're going to be seeing the opposite in different places within society and in popular culture. So for me, the earlier they start to learn what that looks like in terms of true leadership, the better.
Good book. I really recommend it. It's a good book. The illustrations are nice. The illustrator is Ken.
His name is Ken Daly.
Ken Daly.
And he's actually from the Caribbean, interestingly. So he had to do a lot of research to make sure that it actually looked authentic.
Lovely, lovely, lovely illustrations. Lovely. I'm trying to figure out how old is the Regent.
She's 8.
She's about 8
in
years,
this story.
She's 8 years old in the story. Incredible. Now, so, I mean, this is a journey for you. By day, I don't know if you still do, by day you're a management consultant.
And I still am a management consultant.
You are?
Yes.
And then when do you get to write all the stories for children?
I don't know, halfway between when I put my kids to bed and my head hits the pillow.
Wow. So, I mean, you've already developed a pattern here. I mean, a career in writing children's books. Where are you taking this? What's next for you?
Well, I have 2 more books coming out next year and the year after through my same publisher in Canada, All Kids Books. Okay. And I'm also now working on longer pieces of work. So hopefully I should have a middle grade book coming up soon.
That's great. And then I know you are also trying to get these books to underprivileged children.
Yes. So I currently have a book drive that I'm doing through Robin Heights. And basically, you can go into any Robin Heights bookstore, buy this book, and tell them to designate it towards United for Kids Foundation, which is the charity that I'm working with to distribute this book to underprivileged kids.
How many are you targeting?
I'm targeting 1,000 books, but I'll take as many as I get.
As many as yes. Somebody might be watching and I want to do 2,000 books or 5,000.
Yes, please.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So the idea is to get these kids to be able to read this book.
Yes, because, a lot of us, if we have means, we take for granted that our kids can pick books off a bookshelf and read it. But a lot of underprivileged kids don't have books at home to read. So just having one book that you can pick up over and over again, and this one being illustrated that they can even look at the pictures, I think it's a blessing that we may tend to take for granted.
What's the most satisfying thing? Or should I say, okay, what's the most satisfying? So that's one. What's the most satisfying and the most interesting thing about writing children's books?
Good question. Most satisfying, I think, is when kids get it, right? So you write books about all these leadership messages. This year I've gotten quite a number of emails, from teachers saying, oh, my kids really loved your book, they loved the theme, and they learned a lot from it. And for me, that's satisfying. That's kind of why you write for kids. I also love the fact that because I live in Canada, my books expose other kids to African culture. People don't always see the positive side of our culture, right, in other parts of the world, and I'm really privileged that I get to do that. And then what was the second question?
Most interesting thing.
The most interesting thing. When I go into schools and read, there's always like the odd Nigerian child
that is there, sitting down there.
That comes in. So I love it when they come to me and say, I'm from Nigeria too. But I think the child that really, really amused me the most, I went to a school, and at the time I was talking to them about how I was trying to get a literary agent. And so this child walks up to me and says, I can be your agent.
Nigerian child?
No, actually a white kid.
Canadian. Interesting. Okay, Yewande, before we go, can you read a little bit from The Little Regent, or maybe you want to read from any of your other books, whichever one.
Yeah, I'll read The Little Regent.
Okay, all right. So.
Okay, so this is the beginning of the book.
Okay.
Abioye stared at the empty throne as the voice of the village scribe echoed across the palace courtyard. She still felt a sharp pain in her chest whenever she remembered her father's soft laugh. Princess Abioye will be the regent until a new king is crowned, the scribe announced. Mama, Abioye whispered, what does that mean? It means that you will rule for 3 moons, her mother said. Then the kingmakers will choose 3 men, and the villagers will vote for their new king. Chief Osi jumped to his feet. A child cannot rule this village. Chief Iyalode scoffed. What does Abioye know about ruling? Chief Aro nodded. There must be another way. The scribe shook his head. If you do not follow the law, how can you ask others to do so? But Abioye agreed with the chiefs. I'm only 8, she thought. I can't rule. A few days later, the village celebrated the new regent. Obitu dancers performed in the village square. Servants pounded huge mounds of yams. Palace cooks stirred giant pots of egusi soup filled with bushmeat. But Abioye sat silently, rubbing her father's royal beads. And I'll stop it there.
Yeah, I'm sure people want to read the rest right now. Interesting. Thank you very much, Yewande. It's been great having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You. Yeah, and then hopefully when you come back to Nigeria, we'll get you to do a proper reading.
Yes,
with an audience of kids and all that.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you very much for joining us on Channels Book Club.
Thank you.
It's the Lagos stop of the homecoming tour for Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's latest book, Dream Count. The book marks Adichie's return to prose fiction, her first in 12 years. A key highlight of the event is the fireside chat, where media personality Ebuka Obi Uchendu engages the renowned Nigerian author in a conversation around the book.
What made Dream Count happen? At what point did it happen? Was there a moment, or were you just writing and realized, oh, I'm actually now writing a book?
Nobody's actually framed a question like that before. When did it happen? I think it happened in 2 phases. So after I wrote Americana, I knew that I wanted to write about women's lives. I think this is my first novel that is about women. I think the others haven't really been specifically about women. So I knew I wanted to do that, and I think the characters were kind of floating in my head. When I'm thinking of fiction, I don't have a plan, so I don't know what will happen. It's the writing that becomes a kind of discovery. But then there's a big idea, of course, to start with. And so I call it that the spirit was speaking to me. So the spirit started speaking to me 15 years ago. But then I couldn't write. And I can smile about it now, but it's a really horrible place to be when you have what people call writer's block. Because I think the overriding feeling is one of helplessness. You're sitting there, you want to write, but it's not happening. And by write, I mean creatively. Of course, I wrote essays, I wrote nonfiction, but the creative work, the imaginative writing, just wasn't happening, and I was very unhappy. And actually, I said yes to many more invitations in that period because I wasn't writing. So I thought, well, I might as well just go give speeches, even though I was boring myself with the speeches. But the second phase, I think, of when Dream Count happened is, I knew when I started writing. I started writing after my mother died. And just writing the first page, I knew that Dream Count was happening. I didn't have the title then, but I knew. But I also think that it became a different book because my mother died. I think if I did not have writer's block, and I wrote this 10 years ago, I think it would be a really different book. I think this book is very different from the rest of my work. I think it would be, losing my parents was devastating, and it changed me I feel that I'm a different person. I'm not the person who wrote Americana. I think Dream Count is much more vulnerable. I think the sentences are longer. So I think that I am less a dutiful daughter of literature in this book. So I was not interested in following all the rules that I learned in doing the writing program in the US. In the US, writing programs are they tell you that your sentences should be pared down, right? Just use only what you need. And that kind of utilitarian view for me, I'm done. I think maximalism matters. I think we should do it all because life is short. Okay? So honestly, and I think Dream Count, so my sentences being longer, my willingness to embrace language for its own sake, all of those things, I think happened because grief changed me. Grief made me different in so many ways. And yeah. But also, obviously, I think because you've read it, it's not a sad book. It's not a book about grief.
Publisher Anwuli Ojogu, while paying tribute to Adichie, offers insight into the book.
The book is very realistic about the depiction of our lives, especially as women. Our lives are not fanciful, our lives are not a fairy tale. The decisions that we have to make, the judgments that we get for the decisions that we make, it's really about three women, going through the complexities of being a woman, because we all are one way or the other, being conditioned by society because there are expectations of us. So as you go through each character, whether you regard them as strong, whether you regard them as weak, there's always a lesson to learn because they are a depiction of the real lives of women in society. So I encourage everyone to read it. Men, women, I think they would get something from it as much as possible.
To wrap up the event, fans connect personally with the literary icon through a meet and greet and a book signing session.
This is where we have to end the show today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. My name is Olakunle Kasumu. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.